the West Coast Talk Show with Andrew and Michael. Greg is picking up lunch, so I got to steal his spot on the couch. Thank you, Jenna, for such a wonderful presentation. We were actually texting while you were presenting just how much we appreciated it. Our next presenter on our McMaster site is Chantal Huinink. Chantal holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the University of Guelph and a Master of Divinity and Master of Social Work from Martin Luther University College at Wilfrid Laurier. She's a registered social worker of Ontario, the founder of Faith and Willpower Ministries, a motivational speaker, author, and social justice advocate. She has worked with Caris Disability Services, one of the participants and sponsors of this conference. Big shout out to Caris, formerly Christian Horizons, and Kids Ability for many years, providing counseling, mentorship, and spiritual care. She was elected to Waterloo Regional Council in 2022, and her education and experience as a woman with a physical disability has made her keenly aware of the need for holistic supports and services, including consideration of physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual needs. In her spare time, Chantal doesn't sound like you have a lot of spare time, Chantal, walks her dog, whose name is Mocha, swims, studies Spanish, travels, and enjoys concerts and movies. So Chantal, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here, everyone. The topic of my talk is called Theology, Disability, and Politics, because those are three aspects that define my life and who I am right now. I thought that when I grew up, I would know who I was. Actually, what I've learned is that when you grow up, you realize that your life and your identity is continuously evolving. And so that's who I am right now. Another thing that I wanted to say is a shout out to my peeps with CP. Just to bring Carlos up to speed, anyone who has Dutch heritage and is on this side of the ocean really, really is proud of their Dutch heritage. So I'm about as proud of my Dutch heritage as I am proud to have CP, and it's great to be here with you all, although it feels seriously unnatural. I'm usually the only person with CP in the room. So welcome to all you other peeps who represent diverse abilities as well. I'm gonna start with like a autobiographical sad note, and then get into some happy stuff, and then make us all sad and call us to action before we go. So sorry about that. This talk was poorly planned, and when I was supposed to be reviewing it last night, I was worried because my footrest broke. So for dramatic effect today, my footrest just might fall off. But I'm really happy to say that I'm already crushing it, as you can see by this cup between my legs that is crushing it and also helping me to keep my balance. And so, I was 10 years old when Tracy Latimer was killed by her father. And for those of you who don't know who that is or what that represents, Tracy was a girl with CP who wasn't much older than I was in 1993, whose dad thought that she should be euthanized because she would have been in a lot of pain. I didn't know Tracy personally, but seeing it on the news, because I was a current events nerd, even at the age of 10, when you can't walk and play sports, you do some weird things. So I'll keep by your time. So I was a current events nerd, even at the age of 10, and I became dreadfully worried that someone close to me would kill me because they assumed that I was in too much pain or that I wouldn't want to live. And so when I told my Christian family about this, when I shared that with them and asked them what to do about it, they said, tell everyone that you want to live and speak up for people like Tracy who couldn't speak up for themselves. And so in many ways, Tracy's legacy has shaped my life. At the age of 12, I promise I'll move on soon, guys, but the first part is a little slow. At the age of 12, I was sitting with my grandfather who said that I should go into politics. I don't know how he knew that I would like it or that I would be good at it, but he did. At the time, I didn't want to go into politics because I was very concerned that getting votes would mean compromising my own principles and values for the lowest common denominator. Can you tell that I was learning fractions around the same time? So anyway, I hearken back to that conversation with my grandfather, also known as my opa, because as I mentioned, we're Dutch, and that's a very huge source of pride. Too much, probably. But God likes Dutch people better than all the rest of you. So anyway, where was I? Seriously, I don't remember where I was. Oh yeah, back in 2022, I remember this conversation with my grandfather because a former colleague of mine from Kids Ability called me up and said we should go for coffee. I went for coffee with her because the only thing better than a frappuccino is a free frappuccino. But she said to me, I think you should run for regional council. And when I say I think you should run, like, it didn't take a lot to convince me to run. First of all, I can't run physically, so I might as well run politically. But secondly, I worked with a lot of individuals with different sources of marginalization. And while I've loved walking alongside them or rolling alongside them, I've noticed the need for systemic change. And when my friend Dorothy introduced me to this idea of running for office, she not only introduced me to a whole bunch of political gurus who could help with my campaign, but she brought me to regional council chambers for the first time. And I was there for about a minute, and I was really excited because although nobody with a visible disability was elected to that point, my council was forward-thinking in the sense of council chambers was completely wheelchair accessible. There were ramps everywhere. And so I could see myself there, and I could see that God might want me there to introduce changes and systemic equality when it comes to things like housing and transit and things that people with and without disabilities need and benefit from, like everyone else. And so I was very surprised on October 24th, 2022, that my community of able-bodied and disabled people alike saw fit to elect me as a regional councillor. In doing so, they not only acknowledged that I could speak to issues of accessibility and disability and all that that entails, but I could also speak to things like water and wastewater and garbage management. Seriously, most of my job is really gross. But even still, as they proved to me by their votes that I was a holistic human being who could speak to all manner of concerns, I've begun to see myself that way as well. Politics is hard for me. Like I mentioned, I don't really like the lowest common denominator, and I don't really like compromise. And politics involves a lot of that. But Isaiah's reference to being a wonderful counselor makes me motivated to do the very best I can. And I'm learning that there's value to not necessarily controlling the outcome like I used to do. Sorry, Keith and Mark and Neil, who I used to work with and for. But planting seeds of debate and not ending in debate and not really worrying about the outcome. This is the first job that I've had that isn't directly connected to a Christian ministry. And so my ministry has taken the form of speaking about biblical values like inclusion and belonging, and contributions, in the way that everyone has something to contribute because God has given that to them, in a way that people who don't even come from a Christian perspective might catch on to. And I'm thankful to the council that I'm a part of now. I think not only does our diversity in age and gender and race, ethnicity, and ability lend itself to approaching different problems and different solutions from different angles. I think it's been a real testament to our solidarity in the ways that they've adapted for me and with me. Sometimes I get really, really frustrated because I don't read words off a page. I rely on a screen reader, and reading every word of a document through a screen reader takes a lot longer than skimming it. Similarly, collaborating with others to get things done takes negotiation. But I've realized that these challenges, and I don't mean to sugarcoat them, but these challenges that God has given me have lent themselves to strengths. So where my colleagues might skim a document and think that they got all the main ideas down, I can catch really minute details because I read every word of the 600-page report. For example, it doesn't make sense that it costs $300 to park in an accessible parking spot if you're not disabled, which is cool. But it only costs $80 to park on the track of the LRT. Both are equally bad. One is more dangerous than the other, and so because I catch on to little details like that, the public of Waterloo, disabled or not, has to pay equal amounts if they park in the accessible parking spot or if they park on the LRT track. You're welcome. And so, this stuff about, my skills are different and it takes longer and it's more frustrating and so on and so forth really lends itself to the verse in Corinthians, which many people have already brought up today. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, and the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you, right? We all need each other. We all hold different places in our communities and on council, and we all need to be represented as people with equal value and needs of equal importance. Different needs, but equally important needs. And so, this is where I go back from, yeah, that was really nice to be elected. And so we went through the hard part and then the really happy part. Yeah, it was elected and that's so exciting. And now the really sad part again. So given the political position that I hold right now, it's at the lowest level of government, shall we say, or the government that meets the people most closely. But I do have friends in higher places at the provincial and federal government. And so I was very saddened, disheartened, frustrated, angry when the federal government announced in their budget on the 16th of April that the Canada Disability Benefit, which was intended to supplement different rates of disability support programs across Canada so that all people with disabilities would be over the poverty line, regardless of whether they could hold jobs or not. Instead of that, the federal government said, we are going to give every person who receives the Canada Disability tax credit $200 per month. Now, $200 per month sounds like a lot of money to the general population. It is the biggest budget line, but in comparison to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which was implemented right after COVID, which gave every able-bodied person $2,000 per month, it felt to me a little like the lives of people with disabilities are valued, governmentally speaking, 10% of the value of an able-bodied person. And so Um, I, because of this, I have launched a federal petition, which none of you are under any obligation to sign, especially not you, Carlos, because you're from America. But all of you should consider signing if you want to, and would be welcome to when it comes out. It's in process of bilingualizing and so on and so forth right now. But when it comes out, I would be glad to share it with you, and I hope that we can really represent not only to the church, but to the wider society, that people with disabilities are of equal value to their non-disabled counterparts. When Tracy died in 1993, euthanasia was very rare, thank the Lord, in our country. Since Canada's medical assistance in dying legislation, it's almost become commonplace. I was recently interviewed for a 100 Huntley Street episode, and they shared that as many as 45,000 Canadians with disabilities have died by euthanasia since 2016. So that's a lot of people, and many of them are not choosing MAID necessarily because they want to die, but because the waiting list for support that they need, like housing and attendant care and so on and so forth, are anywhere from 2 to 10 years long, while the waiting list for euthanasia is only a 3-month reflection period, which can be waived if you, yeah, thank you, Carlos. But I'm not moving to America because you have Trump. For all of those who didn't hear, Carlos just said it's nuts. It's true. Thanks, Carlos. And that's why we really, really, really want to change it. But I don't want to leave you with the notion that money solves everything. Like, money gives people maybe more resources than they previously had access to, which solves problems. But we, as the church and people who represent Jesus, really need to help find ways for people with disabilities and people without disabilities too, because I'm inclusive of y'all, to know that we are all equally valued, whether we need supports and services and extra resources or not. So I think that's it for me. Thank you, everyone.